Good morning, and it's Thursday all day, and welcome to Penn Vicarage. Lovely to see you this morning. Hope you're well and cheerful today. Well, we are approaching now the end of our adventure through the book of Revelation. We're in chapter 17 today. We have 4 more chapters after this, and we finish on Wednesday. Now, it's been tough. It's probably the toughest book in the Bible. So what I thought I'd do is to give you a bit of a relaxation for a few days after that. What I'm going to say is, if any of you have got a favourite Bible passage or a Bible passage you've always wanted me to talk about, first come, first served, put them at the bottom on the comments card this morning, and I will do a few days, and I'll try and do one each day for a few days after that. So if you've got a favourite reading you've always wanted me to talk about, or you've always wanted to find out about, put it in the comments section at the bottom, and I'll try and do it after we finish Revelation on Wednesday next week. Right, where have we got to so far? The morning recap. Chapter 1, we have God, introduction, we have John and Patmos. Chapter 2, we have letters to churches in Western Turkey. We have chapter 4, we have this vision, a great vision of God over his creation. Chapter 5, we have this scroll and Jesus being pronounced worthy to open the scroll. Chapter 6 and 7, we have the seals being opened and the scroll being opened. Chapters 8 to 11, we have trumpets being blown. Chapter 12, we have God's rescue plan, the birth of the child. Chapter 13 and 14, the opposition. 15 was about the end game. And yesterday, we had the 7 bowls of wrath. So not as much heating in your house yesterday. Today, we're on chapter 17. And here goes. Revelation chapter 17. Again, hard hats and helmets for this one, I'm afraid. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great whore, who's seated on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and with the wine of whose fornication the inhabitants of the earth have become drunk." So he carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with jewels and golden jewels and pearls, holding in her right hand a golden cup full of abominations and impurities of her fornication. And on her forehead was written a name, a mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of whores and of the earth's abominations. And I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the witnesses to Jesus. When I saw her, I was greatly amazed, but the angel said to me, "Why are you so amazed? I will tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her. The beast that you saw was, and is not, and is about to ascend from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. And the inhabitants of the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will be amazed when they see the beast, because it was, and is not, and is to come. This calls for a mind that has wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. Also there are 7 kings, of whom 5 have fallen. One is living, and the other has not yet come. And while he comes, he must remain only for a little while. As for the beast that was and is not, it is an 8th, but it belongs to the 7, and it goes to destruction. And the 10 horns that you saw are the 10 kings that have not yet received a kingdom, but are to receive authority as kings for 1 hour, together with the beast. These are united in yielding their power and authority to the beast. They will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he said to me, "The waters that you saw, where the whore is seated, are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. And the 10 horns that you saw, and they and the beast will hate the whore, and will make her desolate and naked, and will devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose by agreeing to give their kingdom to the beast, until the words of God will be fulfilled. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth." And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Another knotty one for this morning. Well, they say, don't they, that 100 years ago, everyone talked about death and nobody ever talks about sex. Whereas it seems to me, everyone today talks about sex and nobody ever talks about death. Well, bizarrely enough, this passage, I don't think, is about sex. It's not much about death either. It's not about sex. I'm sorry that's not a disappointment to you. It's not about sex. I don't think it's about adultery, fornication, impurities, or prostitution. I don't actually think that's what it's about per se. Reason I say that, I think this passage is actually about the church and what the church is meant to be and what it often has become. That's what I think this passage is about. It's not about sex and morality, it's about the church, the people of God, and what we are supposed to be. You see, in the Bible, infidelity or unfaithfulness in marriage and so on was code for unfaithfulness to God. That's what it means. When God describes how his people are unfaithful to him, he uses the metaphor of people being unfaithful to their partners. And we all know, don't we, how much pain unfaithfulness causes. It causes pain, it causes grief, it breaks up families, it destroys trust. You name it. The whole soap opera industry is based around the pain, it seems to me, that unfaithfulness is caused. That's what happens when people are unfaithful. Trust breaks down and so on. And it causes hurt. And in the same way that it causes hurt within families and so on, it also causes hurt with God. And God wants to be our friends. And when people are unfaithful to him, God gets hurt too. One of my favourite books in the Bible is a book called Hosea in the Old Testament. And to make the point, God uses a very interesting object lesson. He tells Hosea to marry an unfaithful wife, on the principle that being, Hosea, the pain that you feel when your wife is unfaithful to you, that's the pain I feel when my people are unfaithful to me. So sexual immorality, sexual unfaithfulness in this is code for when people are unfaithful to God. And we are meant to be God's people, and we're meant to be faithful to him. He's faithful to us, so we need to be faithful to him. And to really understand what this passage is about, you've got to skip forward about 3 chapters to the wonderful Revelation chapter 21, in which the church is described as being like a bride beautifully adorned for her husband. She is saying that she's beautiful in and out, and that she's adorned with jewels and gifts and things, and she's adorned with good works. Whereas in here, we have the parody, we have the opposite, in which she's described as being a whore, dressed up in other things, dressed up in sexual immorality and so on. And we are, as a church, we are meant to be faithful for Jesus. Like a bride for our husband on a wedding day, and hopefully beyond, we are supposed to make ourselves beautiful and delightful to our spouses. That's what we're meant to do. And as the church, we are meant to be beautiful in the sight of God. We want to please God. We want to be his people. And what it's basically saying here is, and I think it's a warning to the church, is that we need to remain faithful to God. And it's interesting here, actually, that she sits on the 7 heads, okay? And the heads of the beast, as we found out a couple of chapters ago, are about Rome. And so it's talking about, and it's a warning here to the people in the church who sold out, to a people who you might say have got into bed with Rome, that they have compromised, that they've got into bed with Rome. And ultimately, when the beast turns on the whore at the end, the Roman Empire will turn on the Christians too. And I think what this is about, as I say, this is about faithfulness. And what it's a call to us is to be faithful to God, and to make sure we put God first, and to make sure that we don't sell out. Though, especially when we deal with the world around us, just because everybody else is doing something doesn't mean we have to do it too. And we have to be careful to make sure that we're not sucked in by powers that be and influences and people and so on into doing things that we're not supposed to do. And I think it's a warning to us to be faithful to God, to keep putting God first, and to be that beautiful bride adorned for a husband, God's people, to make God happy, rather than being the parody, the opposite of the woman in this reading here this morning. So this passage is not about sex, not per se. I'm sorry about that. But I think it's actually about faithfulness to God. And it's a warning, but it's also a kind of encouragement to us to make sure, my friends, that we are beautiful in the sight of God, to adorn ourselves with good works and make ourselves the people that God would want us to be, the kind of people that put a smile on God's face as a groom would as he looks upon his beautiful wife. God bless you. Have a lovely day. Tough again today.